And good afternoon and welcome. My name is Ryan Belmore. I am the owner and publisher of What's Up Newp. And we're having a little What's Up Newp get together here this afternoon, this morning, as Frank Prosnitz, news editor of What's Up Newp, joins us, as well as Kenny, lifestyle editor. And good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Hey, everybody. Hello.
All right. Let me see here if I have everybody. And Frank and Ken, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, or as
Yes.
I can.
All right.
I can.
Try to get your mics working again here. And let's see. I see both your mics on. Frank, why don't you give it a shot here?
I'll give it a shot here. How does that sound?
All right. It's all right. Can you guys hear each other?
I can hear Ken.
I hear you guys perfectly.
So I will let you guys talk amongst yourselves here. I know what is going on. And here we go. How's that, guys?
Sounds good.
Sounds perfect.
There we go. That's better. This is what live programming does, and appreciate both you guys joining me. And Frank, why don't you kick it off here with what we're doing here today?
Yeah, so this is really the beginning of something that sort of the beginning, because we've done this before, but now we'll do it on a more regular basis of providing at least an hour-long show. We'll bring some guests on that are important. Certainly, this is going to be a season in which we deal with a lot of politics, local politics, and maybe some statewide stuff. I don't think we're about to get into the presidential election unless either of the presidential candidates want to come on the air with us. That'd be interesting.
We could try.
Yeah, there you go. But we cover everything, just like What's Up Newp online does. It covers pretty much everything that there is on Aquidneck Island and then much throughout Rhode Island. This morning, Ken, we're going to talk about the incredible folk festival. Do you know I saw on Channel 10? It was a huge crowd. It was either the folk festival or the jazz festival. See that yesterday morning when Gene Valicente was interviewing Governor Raimondo, and asked her first. He asked her about whether she was going to run for vice president. Something we've rehashed about 1,000 times. Then talked about the crowds and the crowds in Newport, and then the video they showed was terrific. It was I recognized Fort Adams. I saw the vendors. I saw people carrying chairs, no masks. So it was either the folk festival or the jazz festival. That's good reporting, isn't it? Good journalism.
There we go.
All right, I needed to get that in. And absolutely frosted me. But Ken, tell us about the last. We also had a radio station that I will not name that said last week was Jazz Week, when kind of missed it by a week.
Yeah, well, they missed it because of the calendar this year. It was just a later start. It rotates annually, and eventually it'll be Jazz Weekend. But a lot of people got a little mixed up with that, because what was showing up, of course, in your social media feed from a year ago might have been Jazz Festival, even though it was Folk Festival weekend. So just a calendar glitch. But it was quite a production they put together.
No, talk about it.
Yeah. The one thing that really I spent a lot of time listening to was the radio broadcast that they had going on. They were broadcasting it on a variety of stations, all streaming, so you just get them online, Newport Folk Radio. So all weekend long, I know, Ryan, you said you listened to some of this as well. There were classic concerts. There was a blues segment, bluegrass segment. There was the Change is Gonna Come segment. And then they closed last night with the final, the tribute to Pete Seeger that was put on last year, that included, of course, the music with Kermit the Frog, which was pretty special. So,
hey Ken, was this a compilation of different shows from across several years?
Exactly. Most of what they had was, I'd say, the last 10, 12 years, but they did have some great vintage stuff. Going way back to the 1960s, they had Bob Dylan going electric. They had Bob singing with Joan Baez. So they really did cover, I think, the full width of the festival, which is pretty cool.
And I listened most of the weekend to it, and I caught last night they did a movie premiere, and it's only available for 24 hours, so you still have some time to watch it. But a great compilation of artists performing to support Newport Folk Festival. And I also think Newport Folk did a good job of watching never before seen performances, but also listening to never heard before performances. while not pushing that this is all a fundraiser as well. I think a lot of people forget that the festival is a fundraiser.
Exactly. And you got Ken, you got it coming up this weekend for jazz, right?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not sure what's going on with programming from the official jazz festival. But just to point out what Ryan was talking about, because you can still catch, it's called Our Voices Together. And if you go to the Newport Folk website or What's Up Newp, we've got links to it as well. The Our Voices Together was really special. It had a performance from Roger Waters with the band Lucius doing John Prine. They did a John Prine song. It had James Taylor doing Simon and Garfunkel's America. That was really special, and it's still available, I guess, through this evening. It began at 8:30 last night. So you can still go back and check that out. And then there's archive sets also at Sirius. If you have Sirius XM, they have special archive sets they did.
So I know with jazz on Saturday night, they're doing a gala with that you can get as a fundraiser again. But I know it'll be all kinds of performers, including George Wein and Wynton Marsalis, and trying to think of who else is on there, but Diana Krall. So a really good lineup on Saturday, and that starts at 7:00 streaming. And again, like the folk, you can get it later on as well.
Yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun for jazz fans. We'll have a little story on that, I think, coming up in the next day or two. I see Ryan has it there as well, so that's gonna be awesome.
So Newport Jazz Revival Radio, just like Newport Folk Festival did, of course, Jazz Night in America and Jazz Together. So it'll be another great weekend of music. Enjoy it. It's mostly all free. But remember, these are foundations and nonprofits and some of the last remaining local independent nonprofit-run festivals. And I think Newport Folk Festival was promoting last night that they've given out 400 grants to musicians to support them through COVID. I should say that's Newport Festivals Foundation has done that. So certainly support and listen if you can. They are a gem that is missed this year.
Yeah, that Absolutely. Along with the Newport Music Festival, the Chamber Music Festival in the Mansions has also been missed, and they've done some things as well.
And Ken, one of the things I thought we'd bring up quickly while you're on here with us is you, as well as our film critic, Alex, have really been covering a lot of the events at Jane Pickens Theater and Event Center, as well as other movies, things on Netflix. We've really, on our lifestyle side, really have expanded the movie as well as the theater when we can, and film, and we've done a really good job of that.
Yeah, we're one of the few local venues or outlets that's doing film reviews. Most of what you see in other local publications, for example, even online, are things that are coming in nationally from services. So it's great to have Alex doing film. I've been sort of, dipping my toe into film a little bit, leaving music. And I just actually did a sort of great film documentary that's at the Pickens or through the Pickens Virtual Learning, a virtual screening room, getting careers mixed up there. And the Pickens film is the Gordon Lightfoot film, If You Could Read My Mind, which was excellent. I didn't expect it to be as rewarding, really, as it was to watch it. Gordon Lightfoot, of course, a Toronto, Canada-based musician who has played Newport Folk, by the way. I didn't know that either. He played back in 63 or 4. That came up. So that we've got that. I'm also reviewing the Bob Marley documentary that they just added this weekend. That'll be coming out tomorrow.
Excellent. And believe it or not, our music photographers are back at work.
Absolutely. Rick Farrell's been out. We saw great pictures from the Peter Noon concert a week ago. Peter Noon from Herman's Hermits. So that was really special. And he's also covering a series at the Narrow Center for the Arts in Fall River. That series is every Friday night, mainly local musicians. They've got stuff upcoming, including the Schemers, Rhode Island's great group, the Schemers, as well as a all-female show coming up in a couple weeks. So Narrow Center it's a streaming live cast. There's no one in the audience except for the people producing it, of course. So that's a really cool series, and Rick's been covering that every weekend.
And Ken, you are our unofficial weatherman. When I say weatherman, I'm going to
put on your rain hat.
I'm going to preface that with Ken is not a meteorologist, but he has probably the most knowledge regarding weather and storms. And I see the surfers out there at First Beach as well as all along the coast, and it's going to be an exciting week for weather.
Yeah, Surf's Up. That'll be one of the songs, Brian Wilson, Beach Boys song, on my radio show tomorrow night on WRIU, 6 o'clock. Anyway, Surf's Up, and it has the point I wanted to make today was that the tropical storm warning the watch became a warning about an hour ago. So we are getting the tropical storm. It's imminent. However, based on the reports that we're seeing from official weathercasters, of course, it's going to be weakened by the time it gets here. So
what does that mean, Ken?
That means that wind speeds will be down, and I'm reading directly from the National Weather Service. Again, I'm not a qualified weatherman officially, but the Weather Service is saying peak winds 20 to 30 miles per hour, gusts to 45, and that's for the whole state. Whereas right now, of course, winds are 50, 60, 70 miles where it's hitting. Rainfall 1 to 3 inches. So those are some of the guesstimates at this point. Beginning tomorrow afternoon, strongest winds tomorrow evening, and overnight Tuesday night.
Awesome. And when do we expect it to end, or do they say that?
Wednesday is going to be beautiful, hot and muggy and beautiful. So overnight, literally overnight, it'll be out of here by Wednesday morning. Very fast moving storm. When it gets to these parts, it's going to accelerate. It'll probably rain for 6 to 8 hours heavy, and then some showers maybe around that.
So I should turn my sprinklers off.
Probably don't need it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Might have enough for Wednesday. The storm is going a little further west than what they were looking at yesterday. So, you never know with these things. That could be 30 miles here or there, make a difference. So is it going to be significant storm tomorrow? Absolutely. They're saying scattered power outages and scattered branches down, things like that, as opposed to widespread. So it's definitely something to pay attention to.
Should pretty much remind people, this is just the beginning of the hurricane season. Got a lot ahead of us.
And it's been active already this year. So it's 2020. What do you expect, right?
As if we don't have anything else.
How come you took a weather course?
I took a weather course. I'm a social studies teacher, of course, occasionally. And we had a thing where we were working with the science department and looking at the sort of social, cultural aspects of storms. This came about as a result of Katrina. And we saw the damage that did and how that affected the city and society. So I took a hurricane class and just learned a little more about, how they're, of course, the science behind it and the technology, of course, in predicting has really become amazing over the last few years.
That has changed, been a little bit more accurate.
Yes, indeed.
All right. I used to go out there and try to predict it, stick my finger out the window and see which way the wind was blowing.
Well, you'll know tomorrow. You'll hear it tomorrow. It was breezy yesterday, and it was some people had some big storms as well. So expect that kind of a day.
Awesome. All right, Ken. Anything else we should be looking out for this upcoming week? Not to put you on the spot here on whatsupnewp.com.
No, we'll be definitely following developments as far as Jazz Festival, and we'll have some theater reviews, of course, upcoming. So pay attention to those, and you never know. Stuff comes up as well, so we'll see.
You never know in this business. It's you wake up and you never know what you'll be writing about or calling or reporting on. I will quickly bring up that the Mayflower 2 is going to be making a stop in Newport on Thursday. She will be docking at Fort Adams on her way to Plymouth, back to Plymouth. She will not be open for visitors, but you can head over to the Lofson Pier at Fort Adams and you'll be able to take photos of her while she is in port on Thursday. Hopefully the weather's good, or maybe that's why she's docking here. I'm waiting to be joined by them shortly.
Is she okay? I think she's coming in from Mystic where they were doing construction, correct?
Yeah,
correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's on her way back. So she'll be stopping in here on Thursday, weather depending, I'm sure. All right, Ken. Well, we will catch up soon. Thanks for joining us, man, and thanks for the folk recap. It was a good weekend of music.
Great weekend. Thanks for having me. We'll see you guys soon.
All right,
Take care, Ken.
We will talk to you later. And then Frank Prosnitz, we are heading to, so Ken Abrams, our lifestyle editor, is on WRIU, which is the University of Rhode Island College station. He is on Tuesday nights. We should have asked him to give the hours, but you do your own little radio stint as well.
I do. I'm on WBLQ in Westerly, and I do Monday and Tuesday. I do 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. and on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Yeah, Chris DiPaola will join us momentarily, I think.
And what do you think of what do you think of the boss man down there?
Oh, he's a good guy. Crazy Chris.
It's
Actually,
nice.
I'll tell you, I'll be honest about it. Oh, God, cover your ears, Chris. I've seen a lot of people, local radio, local web, local anything is incredibly important. Any days, but more so these days. I don't know of anybody that I have seen in radio who is more in tune and connected to that community as Chris is. He's everywhere.
How much do you want for that?
Take care of me on Friday, Chris.
Okay.
I don't know. There's not much in there. You might want to jump on that.
Right, I saw the moths fly out. So, hey, Chris, why don't you tell us?
I didn't want to say a bat flew out because we can't talk about them right now. But
we can't. We can't talk. Well, especially if you're a Red Sox fan, you can't talk about bats.
That's true. That's true.
Hey, Chris, tell us a little bit of, tell us about the stations you own, and also how did you get into this business?
Well, my parents tell me when I was an infant, the only way they could keep me quiet was to play the radio really loud. So I guess that's when it all started, when I used to cry all the time, as most infants do. And then as time went on, I realized that I liked radio a real lot. And in my teens, my grandfather, Vito, who's no longer with us, showed me an ad in the Westerly Sun saying that John Fuller, who now owns a bunch of stations, was looking for a weekend board operator, which means I had to change reel-to-reel tapes and, clean cart decks. And those of you in radio, before this digital age knew what a cart was, and had to do all those sorts of things. And it was a daytime only AM station, signed it on at sunrise and signed it off at sunset. So that was back in 1988 at the age of 15, and the rest is history.
When did you purchase the station and the other stations, right? You have one in Coventry also, and you have WBLQ and the FM as well.
Well, I had worked in radio for quite some time. One of them was the original WBLQ, which was 99.3, stood for Block Island. And that's after I left John Fuller, BLQ Block Island. That station was sold to the Urso family, and they made it the second incarnation of WERI-FM. So I filed for a non-commercial license back in 1996 with the help of my good friend Ed Perry, who owns a local station in Marshfield, Massachusetts, and now owns several others. WATD, which stands for We're at the Dump, because that's where the tower is. So I put 88.1 on the air in 1997 as a non-com station, using the call letters WBLQ, reviving them. And then the opportunity to buy 1230 AM came about in 2007. And just a couple of years later, after not only FCC approval, but Attorney General approval, 2009, that's when the purchase was made from Boston University, because they were doing public radio on 1230 AM. We had to have a hearing. And I had also had a low power FM on 96.9, which became 96.7. So that was where WBLQ was for a short period of time after 88.1. 96.7 became the Buzz in 2010. That had originally signed on in 2004, which I started. And then in 2015, bought the license, and it was through the corporation, Marconi Broadcasting Foundation, bought the license for 95.1 in Coventry, and here we are today. I tried to make that as short as I could. I know
that was good. That was good. I'd like you to touch on a little bit. First of all, tell me why you think local radio is important. And then I have not seen very many other radio stations go out on location as much as WBLQ does, in particular when there's a crisis in the community.
Well, thank you, Frank. First of all, local radio is a necessity, and not just because I love it and you love it and we radio nerds love it, but it's because when people are looking for a place to go for timely information, and when you do a good job at it, no matter what device you're using, whether it be, through the air, that's the old fashioned way, because that's still around, radio. But even if that becomes in this day and age a digital entity like What's Up Newp, as long as you're live and local and people know, it's like feeding birds in a bird feeder. If the birds know at certain times of the day or at any time of the day they can go over there and get bird seed, they're going to keep coming back. And that's what local radio is. We're giving everybody their bird seed, basically. It's something that they need to live, whether it be the morning show with you, also providing a balanced forum. I mean, we have not only a way to get information out, but also we allow all opinions on the air, and we do that respectfully, and we try our best all the time to be respectful to everybody, and we get the news out as quickly as we can. If there's an accident, if there's a weather situation, just to be live all the time and have a living body in that studio as much of the time as possible, and somebody there to answer the phone. That's so important. That's what local radio is, and that's why it's a necessity.
So one of the more incredible moments came, was it a year ago now, or I don't even timing, when we had the shooting in Westerly?
Yes, unfortunately.
And BLQ was a really go-to source for everybody in the community in a really difficult time.
And that's what I was just going to say. It was a difficult time, and it was a tragedy. And sometimes I hate to even use this terminology that a shining moment for local radio is in a tragedy. But when it comes to dispersing information and trying to also calm people and to let them know that everything is going to be okay and we're there as your friend during these times, and we're also getting the information out, that's another very important part of local radio. And that's what we try to do when there's either a situation like a shooting or a serious storm. Back in 2012, Superstorm Sandy, which people to this day still talk to me about.
Sure.
The fact that we're there to be somebody's friend, is to be somebody's informant, that we're there to keep them company during trying times. That's so important as well.
The radio industry, I think, is a lot of it works pretty thin. And how have things gone for you? And what do you hear from other people in radio during this coronavirus?
Well, if we're talking about the pandemic, let's just go back to March. And Frank, you know this. I was pretty scared in March, as I know most business owners in general, never mind just radio, but most business owners were very scared because nobody knew what to expect. And as time went on, and as we've grown, and I hate to say we've grown accustomed to it, but we know more about how to live during a pandemic. I think that we're in a much better place now than we were in March, when there was a lot of unknown. And people realize the importance of something like local radio and how necessary it is, and especially during times of COVID-19. Where we might have lost some regular sponsors we can depend on every summer, like a couple of the beach places, but we've also gained people who never would have thought about using radio before. So again, getting back to what we initially said in this interview, just being live and local, and Frank, you were there, even when we had to physically distant, because I hate the word socially distance, and I heard you talk about that today. You were on Zoom for a little while, doing the show from your house, and then when we felt it was okay, and when you felt it was okay, you came back to the studio again. But we never stopped. We never stopped being who we were, and that's the most important part of it. You can say, okay, I'm going to let the pandemic knock me down, and just say there's nothing I can do, or just using the Ocean Community Chamber of Commerce as an example. Lisa Kanicki, and you mentioned it all the time on your morning show, to be creative and to find ways to keep things going, whether it be a virtual business after hours or virtual interviews, or in our case, just staying on and keeping the news on and having those live, local, and friendly voices, and still doing the sports shows, even though there's no sports going on for a period. Now we have sports again. Baltimore Orioles, if we end the season now, they'll be in a much better place than they ever have been, which is good.
Well, now wait a minute. Before the season started, we were in first place by virtue of the alphabet.
Well, see, so that it kind of makes a different situation for everything, and sports is just one of them. But we kept our sports shows on. That's my point. We kept doing the fun things that we do on the weekend, like My Baby, The Time Machine. We try to keep that sense of fun and normalcy, and also getting the information out. And if you handle it the right way, no matter what curveball life throws at you, and this is, I'm giving myself advice on this too. You always have to be ready with that catcher's mitt, not only to catch it, if we want to relate it to baseball, but to say, hey, we're going to continue this game. We're not going to call it out on a result of rain or COVID in this case.
So your dad is. Go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to say, many people are out there. There are a million different things to listen to. There's a million different ways to get news and information. What advice do you give people? They necessarily don't have to listen to every day, but they should know about the local AM, locally owned station in their backyard for when they lose power and tropical. We have a tropical storm heading this way. How do people seek out that station and know about you, find out about you, and remember to tune you on when there's a natural disaster or they need information?
Well, it goes back to something Frank just mentioned a little while ago that I didn't touch on. He said we're always out at places. We're out at locations. We're always promoting ourselves on social media. We get involved with chamber events. The fact that we're always there, and I guess you could call it, because it really is, advertising. The fact that we advertise in our own way by just being out there all the time. So then that way, when there is a situation, people know where to go, because you're all over the place, and people say, oh, I know that station. That's where I'm going to go for information because I've seen it all the time. And psychologically, it's embedded in people's heads. WBLQ is the go-to station in Westerly, or I-95.1 is the go-to station in Coventry and West Warwick. And that's how, just like any other form of advertising, you stay out there and you get involved, and you don't get involved for self-serving purposes. You get involved so that way people know who you are. They know of your existence. Like what's up, Newp? I commend you for getting involved with all of Governor Gina Raimondo's news briefings and being at the State House or virtually at the State House. And there's a question submitted almost every single time. And I hear the name, Ryan Belmore for What's Up Newp asked his questions. It's so important to just stay out there. So when they need you, they know where to go. And that would be my advice to people.
And shout out to Coventry for a minute, my hometown, and as well as my good buddy Justin Pomfret is on your station every single Saturday night with his wonderful wife Holly, and we love Coventry and all of that area.
That's right, Justin Pomfret. We do a show called Getting to the Gig up there, which features and spotlights local musicians, and which Justin is himself. And I've always told Justin, and Frank, I don't know if you've ever heard his music, but he definitely sounds like he's much bigger than this area. Definitely Hollywood or Nashville style performer.
Well, we've had on WBLQ, we've had a number of local musicians, incredibly talented people, I think, that have come on and entertained us early in the morning. And sometimes we have some weird things show up. Like this morning we had this sunflower show up through the door. I might pull that out in a minute here. But Rob Simmons, who was a former first selectman from Stonington and former congressman from Connecticut, is now a full-time farmer, and was adorned with a sunflower this morning. That's
right. He's a full-time farmer, and we said you bought the farm, Frank. So now you're
there you go.
But in all seriousness, the point I think you're bringing up is the fact that we have such a smorgasbord of people, and that, of course, that brings the flavor to local radio, where you don't know. Sometimes you don't know what direction the ship is going to sail in, but you know that whatever direction that is, it's featuring somebody local, where people can go anywhere and get national news. People can go anywhere and they can hear what's going on in the White House or even the State House, for example. But there's only one place where people can go in respective local communities, whether it be, us talking to Suzanne Giorno from the Westerly Town Council, or in Coventry, John Parenti talking to Craig Levis, the superintendent of schools in Coventry. There's always, that local person. And when somebody says, oh, I know that person, that's so important. By the way, I should also point out, totally unrelated to this interview, that before we started, I forgot to put my phone in Do Not Disturb mode. So if I black out at any time, that's me hanging the phone up on somebody if they try to call me.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Actually, we're going to have Superintendent Mark Garceau is going to join us momentarily. So Mark has been a guest on the on the morning show and on It's Your Business on Mondays or Tuesdays quite often. And I have
Hey,
found
Frank.
Mark.
He is here, so why don't we bring him up so that way Chris and Mark can say hello. And
I thought you were going to say don't say anything bad about him.
Yeah. Which one?
By
Mark?
the way, we should also point out that Dr. Mark Garceau has become a part of the team at the radio station, where he sent me a note one time about 6 months ago saying, if I'm going to continue these appearances, I demand that I get a jingle like everybody else. And we had an executive board meeting and contract negotiations happened. And now Mark Garceau has his own radio jingle.
His own jingle. There it is. So Mark Garceau is not only an educator, he's a graduate of Berkeley School of Music.
College, Frank. Berkeley College of Music, please.
Berkeley College of Music. All right, there you go. Trombone, right? Am I correct?
Correct. Trombone.
How do you find the notes? How do you find the notes in a trombone?
A lot of it's luck.
Yeah, played with guys like Richie Price, and then went to masters at Rick.
I have a master's in music performance from Rick, a master's in educational leadership from Rick, and a doctorate in educational leadership from Northeastern.
And I have to say, and Chris, I'm sure you'll agree that during this incredibly difficult time, Mark has shown some really spectacular leadership, I think, in terms of the schools in Westerly. I've been unbelievably impressed with, among other things, his vision. He is unbelievably honest about things, and I think has a really good grasp of the situation. So where are things in West? Yeah.
Thank you. But as we've talked about, BLQ has been a huge part of the community's ongoing success as well. So it's a two-way street. We all, I think, try to be as transparent and as forthcoming as we can, and keep people engaged. And your support has been invaluable to us.
I feel the same way about you. Now, before somebody tries to call and chime in and interrupt, since you have Dr. Garceau on, I've always wanted to do this Brady Bunch style, because you're over there, Dr. Garceau. Let's do a fist bump. Ready? Let's do it.
Wrong side.
How do I do this? This way. You don't know what. There we go. All right.
Everything's backwards.
Beautiful.
hey, Chris, before we let you go,
great interview.
Yeah, Chris, I just have one question before we let you go, because we're on the East Bay, and obviously Newport, Portsmouth, Middletown. We're getting lots of visitors, lots of tourists. You guys are right down there, Westerly, getting the same. You're on the border with Connecticut. Just wondering what is the feeling down there in Westerly with visitors as well as second homeowners and things like that?
Well, everybody is doing their absolute best to comply with Governor Gina Raimondo's rules and regulations, and at the same time, our local tourism, whether it be the Ocean Community Chamber of Commerce or the Mesquamaket Business Association, they still try to be as welcoming as possible. So there's a fine line. But with all of that said, I have to say both the Chamber and the Mesquamaket Business Association have done a phenomenal job, whether it's the Chamber of Commerce hosting virtual events and their annual dinner, which they did at the drive-in, Mesquamaket Drive-In, and then, of course, the Mesquamaket Business Association having all of these extra functions at the Mesquamaket Drive-In for people from out of town to check out, and also all of the private business owners who have been so accommodating during these challenging times. I'd have to say, in looking around the area, and I'm not putting anybody down, but looking at this local area compared to other areas and the amount of people we usually get during the summer months, I'd say we've done pretty damn well.
Good report out of Westerly there in the border. And we will catch up with you again soon, Chris.
Hey, Chris, take care. I'll see you in the morning.
Okay, let's fist pump up to you. There you are, Frank. Right
there. Here we go. Down there. Right. You got it?
And Ryan, you're that way. Ryan Belmore. Okay.
There we go. Somewhere.
And,
all right.
By the way, I've got
a little elbow for Dr. Garceau. There we go. All right.
I've got a few texts. Right. That is a dog behind me, by the way. That's our new puppy. People are texting me saying, "What is that animal that is dead behind you?" That is a dog sleeping. So, all right, Chris, we'll talk to you soon.
See you, Chris.
Mark, I just saw something pop up on my screen, which I think is pretty interesting. And it's fall, winter high school sports. Maryland Public Schools postponed fall and winter high school sports seasons because of coronavirus concerns.
Yeah.
What's going on in Rhode Island? We hear anything yet?
Well, the only thing we know for sure, we heard from the Connecticut Association the other day, and it's very disappointing. But at least we know that the Stonington Westerly football game on Thanksgiving, which we hear is the longest running rivalry in the country, is not going to be played on Thanksgiving this year due to COVID concerns. The Rhode Island Interscholastic League is still working to develop their recommendations. But they will only be recommendations until the Department of Health and the governor weigh in on, fall sports and what happens there. So like so many other things, we're waiting for further guidance, and it's very, very frustrating for school leaders, but also for parents, and it's very disappointing for kids. It's just a tough time.
So it's August 3rd. We still don't know what way the governor is going to go.
Right.
Do you have adequate time to put something in place?
Only if we take the steps, I believe, only if we take the steps that we're trying to do now. So we had to submit, and Newport did, and all districts throughout the state had to submit for July 17th plans for multiple scenarios that included full opening, which I refer to as being like September 2019, with the exception of being in recognition of the fact that some kids are going to have underlying medical conditions, or some staff are going to have underlying medical conditions that make returning to the schools for them unsafe. So we knew that. We also had to plan for a partial reopening that would prioritize certain groups, and then a limited reopening, which would prioritize even further and limit the number of people in buildings. And we had to keep in mind that there's the real possibility that should the numbers start to tick up here again in Rhode Island, as it looks like they're starting to, and it gets to the point where the regular flu or just the COVID situation forces the governor to shut us back down, we need to be prepared to go to full distance learning. So I've been thinking of that in terms of, distance learning 2.0, using what we learned through the spring, doing that better, but being ready for that eventuality. So now, what had happened since June is my colleagues and I have been saying to the state, well, are we saying that only students with underlying medical conditions will be offered the opportunity to stay home and engage in distance learning? Or are we going to offer that virtually to anybody who chooses it because they're uncomfortable, or because they liked it, or because they just want to, or blah, blah, blah? And some of my colleagues were getting different responses than others. Some were being told that was going to be an option. Some were being told it wouldn't be an option. The Rhode Island Department of Ed guidance on their Facebook page, on their web page, says more information to follow. So there wasn't real clarity about that until Wednesday's press conference with the governor, where she said all families will be given the choice to return to school or not. So now, with the understanding that it's going to be August 17th, likely, before she makes an announcement about how the state is going to go, or whether or not parts of the state are going to go a different way than other parts, because we recognize that Westerly's numbers and issues and challenges are not the same as Pawtucket's or Central Falls or Providence's, for example. If we have to wait until the 17th, I'm very, very anxious about starting on the afternoon of the 17th or the morning of the 18th, planning to reopen on August 31st. So our position is the only two things that I have any control over or that I can count on is I'm going to have kids in the building and I'm going to have kids at home. Well, what we're trying to do now is figure out who is who. So we issued it's not so much a survey, but I'm calling it a declaration of intent the other day, asking parents basically to say, all right, based on what you know today, do you plan on sending your kids to school on August 31st, or are you opting for the distance learning option? Because I need to know who to expect. I need to know who to expect in terms of students and staff, so that I can then start to assign staff to those kids who are going to be home, or figure out other means of delivering instruction. So what I mean by that is distance learning in the spring, everybody knows how that happened. We streamed from our households to kids. The third grade teacher had their third grade class in front of them, all in little tiles. They did it that way. It'll probably look a lot like that again in the fall if we have to go to distance learning. But we also recognize that we're going to have teachers and students in our buildings. And for singleton classes, for example, you know, a U.S. history class at the high school level, what that may end up having to look like is there are kids that are home, and they access their instruction and their content because the class is being taught and it's being live streamed at the same time it's being taught to home. And if I have teachers or paraprofessionals available who otherwise wouldn't be because there are fewer kids in the building, what I hope to be able to do is then assign those people to classrooms. So I might have 2 adults in a classroom, the teacher just doing their thing, teaching their class, it's being live streamed. But then I have somebody who's manning a computer and dealing with comments that are coming through the chat bar, doing whatever they can to maintain the connections between the teachers and the kids at home. So again, I think we'll probably have at least 2 models, one that looks like the spring did and one that's streaming of live instruction with supports in place. Those are the only things I can really plan for at this point. I know I'm going to have some kids in the building, unless, of course, the governor said we're not opening at all. And I'm going to have kids at home. So we're trying to plan for those things we know about, do those the best we can. And we're asking people to make a somewhat hard decision. I mean, a firm decision. I know they're all hard, but a firm decision for now, in recognition of the fact too that we're going to have to revisit things as we go. And so if a parent chooses distance learning, but then says, you know what, I'm feeling more comfortable about what I'm seeing, I'd like my kid in school, we'll have that conversation. We'll figure out how to make it work, and vice versa. But I don't think I'm going to change anybody's mind about attending school in the next 3 weeks if they're on the fence. And frankly, if they're on the fence, my recommendation is just choose distance learning, because I'm not going to change your mind. You're going to be anxious. You're going to be sending your kid to school. It's not going to be worth it. Choose distance learning initially, and we'll go from there.
So if the governor says they want everybody back in school, do you anticipate that you will have a number of teachers who will then opt out?
Well, so concurrent to trying to get a sense of what kids are going to show up, we have to identify staff members who have underlying medical conditions who, the CDC and everybody else is recommending things have to look different for them. So we're thinking in terms of 3 tiers. We're saying if you have an underlying condition that's going to preclude you from returning to work, you need to let us know so we can plan effectively. You're eligible for leave, you're eligible for these benefits, and all of that. The second tier is if you live in a household with somebody who's got underlying medical conditions and that puts you in a similar boat, you also are eligible for some leave under the CARES Act, you're eligible for some accommodations. We want to know about that. And then the third tier is if you are just interested in being part of a distance learning model, let us know that. Then we have, 3 buckets of people that we know we can work with to make all of what I described a couple minutes ago happen. Being part of a distance learning model might mean you're that 3rd grade teacher assigned to that 3rd grade class. It might mean you're that secondary teacher in a high school class that's helping to bridge the gap between what's happening in the classroom and what's happening in the students' homes. So all we're trying to do now is what I think is the best we can do now, August 3rd, is find out who's who we should plan on showing up August 31st, and what it might look like. And then the governor is going to do what she does on the 17th. I know in Massachusetts, the governor has already decided that they're going to put off the opening of schools by 10 days beyond what they had initially said. I don't know if it was the 31st or not, but there's been talk about that happening in Rhode Island. It's going to be the governor's call. The Boston Public Schools have already decided they're opening in a distance model. You might hear something similar, in Rhode Island. It could be that one of the urbans will say, you know what, we're opening in a distance model, but superintendents are not in the position to make those calls right now. They're all at the state level. They're all being driven by CDC guidance. They're all being driven by the governor's office.
So I think Massachusetts decreased the number of school days, required school days.
Right, and that possibility exists in Rhode Island. The governor, we were told this months ago. We were told this in March, I believe. The governor has the ability with the Board of Education to pull back that 180-day requirement to 170 days. But that hasn't happened yet. That decision hasn't happened. We also know in Westerly, there was pressure to move the start date beyond Labor Day for other reasons, for employment reasons. We're in a coastal community. Our in Westerly, the beach is staffed by kids. If we start on the 31st, the business association loses their workforce. So that was a concern and a consideration. So all of those things have to be weighed. But and I don't mean this to disrespect the governor, because I think she's done a tremendous job in the very difficult position she's been placed. But the guidance changes, and the guidance isn't always consistent. And we're kind of in a holding pattern. And I think everybody's just doing the best they possibly can at this time.
So back in June, the Westerly School Department was level funded. You can't decrease funding to schools. Ryan, I think probably the same in Newport, and many other communities. Most communities in the state probably level funded, with some rare exceptions. You go back to school now, there are a lot of requirements that are going to cost more money, including probably a need for more teachers, for more janitorial staff. Where's the money coming from?
I wish I knew the easy answer, Frank. There are some monies, like I mentioned, the CARES Act, and there's a couple of provisions within that. And there's money that the governor has carved out from the state budget, moving some monies around from this year's budget to next year's, which resulted in about $50 million being freed up. All told, I'm hearing there's about $100 million available to districts to address those kinds of things. But $100 million doesn't go a long way. It sounds like a lot of money, but it doesn't go a long way, especially when you're talking about staffing and the needs for cleaning and sanitizing our buildings, the expenses of associated with transportation, the number of buses that are required if we're going to practice social distancing and limit the number of kids on the buses, the monitors, all of that, the PPE, all of that. So that money doesn't go all that far. Being level funded is never where a superintendent wants to be any year, because level funding right out of the gate doesn't mean level service. The cost of doing business goes up each year. So we had to make some difficult decisions before COVID even hit. The upside to the situation, if there's any though, is that beginning March 13th, when we left the buildings, a number of our staff went to furlough or layoff and were eligible for unemployment benefits. We also weren't paying for we weren't paying for transportation anymore. We weren't paying gas and all that. So we did end the year, the fiscal 20 year, with savings of about $1.2 million that goes into a fund balance, which is we can tap into later. So while being level funded creates real challenges, there were some offsets by virtue of the fact that we shut down in March as opposed to June. But it still doesn't make for a pretty picture.
Mark, some people may look at the numbers we're at right now and say we're in no better place than we were in the spring. I guess the answer may be obvious, but for some it may not be. Why is it so important to go back to school and not just distance learn for the rest of the year? It sounds like it would be safer for the students. It would save the schools money. Why not just go that way? Is the education in the classroom that much better than children were getting through distant learning?
So it's the answer is I think dependent upon who you ask. Yes, I don't think face-to-face instruction in the classroom can be. I don't think the quality of instruction can be matched via distance learning. I think there is a need to narrow the focus of the curriculum, which is not always the worst thing that could happen either. But distance learning is just not going to be the same in terms of delivery of content, in terms of the socialization that kids experience. Learning is a very social activity. The mental health concerns about isolation and working from home and all of that. I haven't seen these numbers, but I keep hearing we're seeing upticks in mental health referrals and even suicide rates and all these kinds of things. Because people struggle with this idiotic reality that we're living in, and it's just we're all so sick and tired of this. So we want to get back to a sense of normalcy, and face-to-face instruction is absolutely going to win out over distance learning every day, I think.
So, Mark,
but the state, well, from the president on down, has a different reason for wanting the schools to open. And that's because, frankly, and it's somewhat insulting to educators, because we provide daycare for parents who need to go back to work. So when the governor wants the schools open, it's because she believes it's in the best interest of kids, but she sees it as absolutely necessary for restarting the economy as well. So there's that consideration that goes into it. There's also, and I said this to superintendents the other day, and it wasn't necessarily well received, but when we didn't have firm answers about whether or not distance learning was an option that we could offer, we were hearing from parents, either directly or in social media, there's all this buzz, well then, I don't feel safe sending my kid to school, so I'm gonna homeschool instead. Okay, well that opens up two other cans of worms. It's rare, I think, at least in my experience, that homeschooling is of the quality that we would want to see. Some parents do it really well. The majority, their heart's in the right place, but it's not what it could be. So there's that concern. But the other is that if districts are deciding to offer distance learning because they fear that the alternative is that families will select homeschooling, and thereby the state allocation of monies to our towns will decrease because it's based on a per pupil allocation. Well, to me, that's the absolute wrong reason to be making that decision. You're making the decision based on money coming into your district. It's a reality, but frankly, I think it sucks that we would be in the position where we have to make those kind of decisions based on money. So my position has been, if it's safe to open the schools, let's open the schools. If it's not safe to open the schools, let's open in distance learning. But either way, let's do it for the right reasons. That's what.
So, Mark, before all of this happened, the Jacobs report came out and identified a number of school districts, Newport, Rogers High School in particular, but the Westerly as well. And the schools were mostly unsafe. Was it $2.1 million to bring schools? $1 billion. Billion to bring schools to a safe place and to a 21st century learning place, if you will. All that happened in Westerly. They've had two failed votes for school construction. Newport this fall presumably will have on the ballot a bond issue of $103 million or more for a new high school and additional classrooms at the elementary school. But where are these programs? Are these programs dead now?
You know, I wish Newport luck. I really do. But I think we've got a lot of people that are thinking, geez, am I going to get my $600 this week or not? They don't even know where they are, right? At the household level. And then the communities, how does Newport or Westerly, these seasonal communities, have any idea what their revenues are going to look like this year based on everything that's happened? How do we know what is going to happen in Washington that's going to support us? I think there's so much uncertainty, and there's a sense that we've all been living in basically survival mode since March 13th, that I'm somewhat relieved that we're not going to be on the ballot in November, because I don't think there was any shot that we were going to be successful this year. Had this all not happened, had COVID not happened, yeah, we wanted to pursue it and be on the ballot in November. But I think with an she's saying now $800 million deficit. I wouldn't be surprised if it's much higher. I think the governor's absolutely got her plate full, and it wouldn't surprise me to see a moratorium placed on any new projects going forward. But
well, that of course
successful, God bless them. Good for them.
Yeah. I mean, there was a moratorium on school projects a few years ago.
Right.
So that wouldn't be unheard of. So you mentioned a $1.3 million surplus because $1.2 million because of COVID, but weren't you anticipating that money to be used to fill in for some of those emergency projects that were included would have been included in the bond issue?
It was earmarked for some of that, but your priorities changed, and we also freed up a building. We had the Tower Street Community Center, which was formerly a Westerly Public Schools building. We turned that over to the town. That freed up some money, and we had previously tapped into fund balance. So at least in Westerly, this was kind of new to me. At least in Westerly, if you go into the end of the year with a surplus, it goes into fund balance. The monies that are still marked for the schools. It doesn't go back to the town. and it basically sits there. So it's almost like a rainy day fund for the district. By policy, we have to maintain somewhere between 2 and 5% of that. If we're near 5% or drifting above that, I will sometimes go to the school committee and say, listen, we're in good shape. We can take some money and transfer it from fund balance to operating to do these things and still be within policy. And I think the monies you're mentioning, Frank, is what we did. We did that with previous fund balance in around December. I said, well, the building project is going to move forward, but we still have work that has to happen on our buildings. I would propose we move maybe $1.4 million fund balance over to operating and let our facilities director start chipping away at those projects that we know have to get done, regardless of what happens in the future. And that's what they did. So we did that during the winter, and he's been doing just that. We've done a lot of concrete work and paving and painting and all those kinds of things to maintain our buildings. And now at the end of this year, we pretty much replenished what we had taken out. We took out 1.4. We've got another 1.2 going in. So there's money there for that. But you don't want to budget based on fund balance because you're creating a structural deficit every time you do that. It's good for like one-time purchases or major projects in that. And this year, those purchases may include PPE. It may include, HVAC. It may include, we might find we're not anywhere near where we need to be in terms of cleaning supplies. So I see us having to tap into that this year when and if we open.
What do you hear from other superintendents from around the state? Have many of them made up their minds that they want to go back in a certain way, or are they all sitting here very uncertain?
There's a great deal of uncertainty. My colleagues in South County, we're all part of an email conversation that goes on, and we're all trying to do the same things. We all recognize that we want to see kids in buildings, but we have to open safely. We all recognize that families have trepidation, and that this matter of should we or could we or will we offer choice has been decided by the governor. So we're all kind of scrambling to figure out the best we can. I was just on an email conversation before I joined you gentlemen, and it was the same thing. Superintendents are saying, by the end of the week, folks, please let us know what you plan to do. Should we expect your kids on the 31st? Because there are parents that say, I don't know. I need this to be week to week, or I can't run a district week to week like that. We have teachers who are going to request leave or are going to be put into assignments. We have bus routes that have to be done. We have food service that we have to plan for. And I need to know that we've got at least some firm but malleable idea about what's going to happen. And no matter how many times I say, listen, tell us what you're thinking today, because it's not going to change a whole lot. And then we will work with you after that. People say, I can't decide today. Well, if you can't decide today, my recommendation would be you say you're going to open in distance learning, because I'm not going to change your mind. I'm not going to make you feel more comfortable in the next few weeks. So all the soups are dealing with the same situation. And unfortunately, we wait till every Wednesday's press conference to find out the latest.
During this period of time, have you had, or superintendents had, much communication with the governor directly, and with staff at Rhode Island Department of Education directly, or is other than the request for the plans?
The superintendents meet at least weekly in a Zoom meeting. It might be something like this, and there's 35 or 40 of us there. We meet. The governor has joined us for 2 of those meetings. Last week she joined us for quite a while, which was appreciated. The commissioner has likewise joined a couple of those discussions, but a lot of it is emails from RIDE to us requesting information, providing feedback on our plans, providing updated answers to questions that we've been, asking or that are coming from the field. But there's a lot of Wild West going on. There's a lot of us, doing the best we can to support each other without a lot of clarity from the state level. And again, it's not to cast aspersions on them. They've got their hands full, and the information does change. It's a fluid situation. A couple of weeks ago, Rhode Island was the state in the union, along with Connecticut, where numbers were declining. We were leading the country in testing. all of those things. And now we don't feel as confident as we did even 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Mark, I'm going to ask you one last question. Ryan, I don't know if you have anything more, and I certainly want to, Mark, if you have anything else to add. Did you ever anticipate being in this position?
I'm just a trombone player from Cranston, Frank. No, you can't. They don't cover this in methods classes, and unfortunately, it has nothing to do with teaching and learning. Well, it does, but we think we're all about improving opportunities and outcomes for kids. And since March, myself and Colleen and others have been just, just working through and doing crisis management and trying to plan logistics as best we can and work with our staffs. And I'm really worried about my admin staff. My principals had just been working their butts off since March, and any idea of relaxing in the summer and chilling for a bit just went out the window. I feel like I've had about a half hour off since March. It's insanity. But the flip side is we're healthy. We still have our jobs. We still get to work with kids. We still get to support teachers and families. And we're going to just make the best of it. And if it can be done, we'll figure out how to do it.
I guess my final question, Mark, would be is obviously what parents can do is answer your survey or whatever school district they're in, answer any communication coming, give feedback, participate in forums. I know Newport is having some forums. But what else can parents and students do right now to help support a successful school year here in the fall?
I think all the things you mentioned, Ryan, but also, we ask for a degree of grace and understanding that we are doing the best we can to get those answers to people. Everybody, I think we all need to kind of collectively breathe a little bit and just, say parents are doing the best they know how. Superintendents are doing the best they know how. This will pass. We just have to continue to work through it. I don't have anything better than that. I'm sorry. All
right, that's good enough information. I think.
Mark, you have anything to add? Anything you think people should do?
No, I don't. I mean, this is what I do all day, and I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you, gentlemen. But we'll just keep at it, and we just want to keep our kids and staff members and in the larger community healthy. And maybe a year from now, this will all just be a crazy story.
Mark Garceau, thank you very much, and thanks for your leadership in Westerly, and also, you provide a vision for a lot of people around the state.
Thank you, Frank. Talk to you soon. So long, Ryan. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks. All right, and that was Mark Garceau, who is the superintendent of Westerly Public Schools, way down there in the great town of Westerly. And, we could talk to 35, 40 superintendents, and a lot of the conversations are going to go the same way. It's good to get his feedback on it. Certainly a big school district and a challenging one, and even a little bit more challenging of an area being on the border of Connecticut. But they certainly have their share of tourism. So it was good to get their perspective, his as well as Chris's perspective.
Sure. Very similar communities, Newport being a little more upbeat tourism kind of community. Westerly in that area, lots of golf courses, they have beaches, and they've got, without tourism, they would be lost. And so very similar issues that the two communities share.
And, it's a very difficult, there's a lot of difficult jobs to be had right now all across the state and government, but certainly trying to have 3 different plans. There's probably 50 different plans. It's not easy right now. And, we all need to work together and help out and answer surveys and participate during this time.
Yeah, I think superintendents have some of the most difficult jobs. My last question, Jim, or one of the last questions, I guess, about the involvement of RIDE and the governor. I was curious whether they were getting any kind of feedback or having an opportunity to hear those people at the director's office and at the governor's office, hearing from the superintendents directly in helping shape whatever policy we have.
And people may be sitting there saying, "Oh, you're having Westerly on today." Well, we're going to have people from all over Rhode Island on this little program that we have here.
We have, and just a little bit of a nudge. We have sent a request out to to Colleen, the superintendent of schools in Newport, and we hope that she will accept that and come on with us.
And we'll be doing this quite often, and we'll be making it a regular thing. Frank and I have spent quite amount of hours on radio, and we love radio, but this gives us a unique perspective where you can actually see the guests. We are not professionally owned, or we're not, we're professionally owned, but we're not corporate owned. So we can have a little fun with our guests. I can have my dog lay in the background. We can make some jokes.
I can have my wife walking back and forth.
Guests in and out. But also what we want to do is have people be interactive with the program. So this program will be live on our Facebook feed, on our website, on our YouTube channel. You can comment, and I can see your comments, and I can pull them right up here. So they would look like this. When people comment or ask questions, we could bring them right up. And we could also share the link with some of our listeners and watchers, and we can pull them into the video as well. So, we hope this is just another way for people to get information, get informed, and be entertained. And
people, of course, can watch it again or refer it to other people. It'll be up on the website. I wanted to just take a moment, Ryan, to talk about our election coverage.
Yeah.
We've sent a survey out to all of the candidates on Aquidneck Island and Jamestown, legislators, and are receiving these surveys back. They're pretty extensive. They're asking them for some of their vision as they go forward. You'll start seeing those, or you'll start seeing stories about some of those on the website, and hopefully we can put candidates who are running from the same office, not looking at a debate, but let them come on, maybe tell their story. Maybe if it's candidates for the same office, maybe we give them each a half an hour or 15 minutes or something to talk about some of what they'd like to do, to give people an idea of what these candidates look like. I know that there are efforts at some collaborations among some media outlets. I have a problem with that a little bit, and God bless them, let them do what they wish. But I think it's really important that we have independent media voices out there, because we all approach this differently, and it's the best way for voters to get a really good perspective. I used to, when I was just in print, I would tell people, you got to read 3 newspapers a day: a liberal newspaper, a conservative newspaper, something in the middle, and then you go make up your own mind about things. Well, we don't have that vibrant print media anymore, but you still can get a variety of views and voices that I think are important to be heard. And I think we provide a good perspective here. We've got some good people who are working with us, and we're going to try to provide some pretty substantial election coverage. Make it easier for you when you go to vote.
That's it. And the election coverage will start popping up on the website here this week. Some of our survey results, as well as we'll start having some candidates pop up here on this. I guess we're going to call it a program or a show, whatever it may be.
Extravaganza. It's an extravaganza.
It's a place to gather every day, and hopefully you can join us. And, it's something that we wanted to start, and we might end up moving some times. But right now, I feel pretty good about this lunchtime. What's nice is we can go as short or as long as we need.
Yeah, and it's really a conversation, and we love for you to join in. But it's great. I think it was good this morning. Mark Garceau was great. Chris DiPaola is a good look at what a local radio guy looks like, and how he's managing his station. And there you have it.
All right, excellent. Well, Frank, that's going to do it for us here today, and we'll try this again tomorrow.
Very good. Thanks, Ryan.
All right. For Frank Prosnitz, Ryan Belmore, and all of us at What's Up Newp, thanks for watching, and send any feedback, questions, comments, guest ideas, Ryan at whatsupnewp.com. It's going to do it for us today.